The next part of my Doctor Who DVD update. So yesterday we had finished off with Peter Davison's first story, Castrovalva. So now we're on to second. This is a fairly recent release, just came out this past month. For the Doomsday. Generally not believed to be one of the better stories. In fact, Peter Davison himself has stated that he does not care for this one himself. So mainly for completists. The Visitation, probably one of his better stories. 2 stories after For the Doomsday, and showed a remarkable improvement. Black Orchid, another budget release. Only 2 episodes in this one, although this was actually highly sought after before it came out on DVD. And actually, for a budget release, it doesn't have a ton of extra stuff, but it does have a fairly bit. Like, it's got a lot of small features and stuff like that, but still worth the money, and it's fairly inexpensive compared to the other ones. Earthshock, all-time classic when the Cybermen came back. Time Flight and Arc of Infinity both came out at the same time. They were actually in a set in Britain, or R2. Neither of which are believed to be great stories, although personally I don't mind Arc of Infinity. Time Flight, yeah, it has its moments, but it's not great. And that is followed by the original release of the 5 Doctors, one of the first 3 to come out. For years, people complained about this one because it was the altered 1995 version where some of the effects, music had been changed, extra scenes had been added. And this one, being one of the early ones, had virtually no special features, and it's actually the only DVD that has different menu selection screen than all the other releases. But it was also the first Doctor Who DVD released in R2 back in 1999, I believe it was. Warriors of the Deep. This is the 3rd one in the Beneath the Deep set. Or sorry, Beneath the Surface set, I should say. Not that highly regarded. Watchable. Just don't expect impressive things with some of the effects, especially with the monster guys in the horse costume thing. The documentary explains it all. Resurrection of the Daleks, brilliant story. I believe this had one of the highest death counts of any single story of Doctor Who. At least I'm pretty sure it has. Although it's since for some stiff competition. I believe they compared that one to Terminator 1, and there was a higher death count in that than the first Terminator movie. Caves of Androzani, argued to be perhaps the best story in the history of Doctor Who, and I think I almost have to agree with them. Deadly Assassin is probably my favorite, although this probably comes in second. And if you're looking for an introduction to the series, and this is Peter Davison's final story on top of that, I would actually highly recommend this DVD. So that finishes off Tom Baker. Now we're into Colin Baker, who is actually my personal favorite in the role, although that's more for his audio work on a Big Finish, because he didn't have much luck during his run as the Doctor. Although arguably some of the stuff in the first of his 2 seasons were not that bad. His first episode, The Twin Dilemma, was actually attached to the end of Peter Davison's episode. That is not out yet, but I believe it's coming out shortly. So, Vengeance of Varos. This is when the show began to become much darker in tone, although I actually thought it suited it quite well. I don't know, I've always liked this story, although a lot of people disagree with me. Mark of the Ronnie. I actually like this one. Another one that a lot of people don't like, though some people just write off everything Colin Baker ever did, which is kind of a shame. The 2 Doctors. In some ways it was kind of a letdown, but it was nice to see Patrick Troughton come back in the role of the Doctor with Colin Baker. And I don't know, I'd put this in my personal top 10. And then we have the ever-hated Time Lash. which is believed to be the worst thing the series ever released. I don't completely hate it, and this actually has a very amusing documentary, essentially focusing on why the story was such a disaster. So that on its own is interesting to watch. Revelation of the Daleks. Another fairly dark story. Actually, even for Doctor Who at the time, it was fairly dark. Kind of a new concept for the show. The Doctor doesn't, or the character of the Doctor doesn't appear as much in the story as he does in other ones, and unfortunately, we never really got to see where it was going after this because the show was put on hiatus for 2 years after this episode aired. And then it came back with a cut-down season. So they decided, since they only had 14 episodes, they would do one massive continuous story. So that's the Trial of a Time Lord box set. At some point I'm actually going to do a video on that one as well on its own. But the umbrella title of the entire series was Trial of a Time Lord. People are torn on that one. I like them. A lot of people hate them. And then, if Colin Baker isn't controversial enough in Doctor Who lore, followed by Sylvester McCoy, the last actor to play the Doctor before the show was put on hiatus in 1989 and did not come back until 1996 for one movie, and then not again until 2005 with the new series. The tone of the show is completely different during his time. They were trying to take it in a new direction. Although I think at this point many people were just burned out on Doctor Who and it needed a rest. Although I've reevaluated Sylvester McCoy recently because I was actually a fan of the show back when his last season first aired on PBS. I didn't think it was completely bad, but some people still blame him to this day for the show getting canceled. It wasn't his fault. It was just a combination of factors that destroyed the show. But Remembrance of the Daleks, their last appearance in the original series. Although this might be one of the only Sylvester McCoy stories other than Curse of Fenric that is possibly considered a classic. This one is fairly highly regarded in some circles. Ghostlight, although it is fairly confusing. Curse of Fenric, a special version of this, was edited together for DVD because they cut a lot out in the original version. Both versions are available on the DVD, as well as the usual selection of special features. And this was it, the final story from the original series, Survival. Includes a ton of special features on the end of the series and the story itself. This was the re-release of the Five Doctors with a ton of special features. The original 1983 version and the remastered 1995 version with all the extras and stuff, so people can have both versions. I still keep the original for completeness sake, and it's also the only one where the spine doesn't completely match up, which that was done on purpose because it's the special 25th anniversary release of the story. Then we're into the new series, Christopher Eccleston's one season. These special features are, well, mainly the major one is Doctor Who Confidential, which were aired during the series. Doctor Who The Complete Second Series. That was David Tennant's first season. David Tennant's second season, third series since the show's return. So essentially when they brought the show back, they started the count again from Series 1. The one that aired just this past year, Doctor Who 4th Series, which actually is probably the best out of all four of them, although there's only actually one episode out of the entire series since the show returned that I don't particularly like. It was this really, really bad episode called Fear Her in the second series. Nothing against the kid in the role or anything like that. For anyone who's seen it, it's a terrible, terrible episode. Torchwood, Doctor Who spinoff. Mixed reviews on this one. I like it, although it's Doctor Who with lots of blood, more blood I should say, and bad words and so forth. And other things probably not appropriate for kids. So it's like Doctor Who for adults. Torchwood Season 2. Sarah Jane Adventures, Doctor Who for children. I have it for completist purposes, and I didn't mind watching it. And last but not least, and I still have to watch this one, Doctor Who The Infinite Quest. So, there you have it.